Yo, what's up guys? In this video, I am going to be reacting to another video about the state of the sports betting industry in the US. So this video is very popular. It's called Can Sports Betting Be Fun Again? Again, it's going to be about the state of the gambling industry in the US. It was emailed to me a few different times, so I finally decided to watch it. I thought it was a pretty interesting video. And I've really seen the rise in sports betting. So the Supreme Court, because you could always gamble, right? You could go to Las Vegas, place bets. This isn't a super new thing. However, online sports betting wasn't even legal in the US until 2018. So Prize Picks, FanDuel Sportsbook, DraftKings Sportsbook, online sports betting, super accessible. You can do it right from your phone. This is a pretty new thing in America, right? And it's gone very mainstream. Now sportsbooks, they have marketing deals with leagues like the NBA, the NFL. It's crazy. So sports betting's really gone to a whole new level. But anyways, I was, when sports betting legalized at the time, I was a quantitative trader working in Pennsylvania at a firm called Susquehanna International Group, and I was probably one of the first sports bettors in the US. I lived on the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border, so I still remember the first day that sports betting legalized, in the US. A bunch of people from work were going to New Jersey to sign up for these sports books, take advantage of sign-up bonuses. I was a trader, so I was a gambler in financial markets, so a lot of the people I worked with were pretty big sports bettors. They wanted to bet on sports. So long story short, I got into it really quickly. And I really saw in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, sports betting start to take off. All the ads starting to hit the TVs for FanDuel and DraftKings. So without further ado, I'm gonna break down this video. But a little bit about my background is, since sports betting legalized in 2018, there basically has not been a day that I haven't gambled. I bet on sports every single day. And I'm pretty profitable. I mean, again, I used to be a quantitative trader. I was a market maker for options, so I have a pretty deep expertise in markets and gambling. I used to be a very serious poker player as well. And over the past few years, I've made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars year after year betting on sports. Basically, all my plays are given out on social media, Twitter, YouTube, stuff like that. So I've kind of followed the entire rise in the sports betting industry since inception, from being one of the first customers on DraftKings and FanDuel to betting on sports every single day, using dozens and dozens of sports books, traveling all across the country to different states to check out new sports books, take advantage of their sign-up bonuses. I've been there, I've done all this, so I'm really excited to kind of share my thoughts on this super popular YouTube video. Let's get into it. And by the way, I'm gonna put the video on 2x speed. It's kind of long, it's like 25 minutes long. So I figured I'll just kind of speed up the video and let's get into it.
That's gonna create a safety. And that's gonna end the game. And you know why I'm laughing, don't you? Yeah. Of course you do.
In just a few short years, how did we go from broadcasters making subtle references to gamblers?
There are some people happy, some not so happy.
There's some people, I can't believe what just happened.
To this.
Biggest parlay I've ever hit. Over $500,000.
Well, it's a funny story. To me, this isn't just research or something that's academic. I mean, it's something I grew up around. I've been around it my whole life. I'm from Hot Springs, Arkansas, which once upon a time was America's gambling capital. Long before Vegas was Vegas, Hot Springs was Vegas in the United States. I grew up in a town where there was a bookie on the Chamber of Commerce. I grew up going to the racetrack with my family on the weekends. It wasn't something that I saw as being some sort of behavior that was pathological or taboo. That's just what we did for fun. And it wasn't until I was able to leave that place and travel a bit to realize that not everybody in America thought about it the same way, especially not in the 80s and 90s. I mean, Pete Rose was a big deal.
Mr. Rose has accepted baseball's ultimate sanction, which is lifetime ineligibility.
Did you bet on your own team?
Yes. There's a name for it, gambling on sporting events.
That's still crazy to me. Athletes betting on their own team, betting on sports, fixing games. I mean, I already feel like in the past 12 months, Jonte Porter, Terry Rozier, even Ohtani, all these scandals have broken. We know gambling's addictive. And all these athletes are seeing gambling constantly. Their friends are talking to them about gambling. Fans are bothering them about gambling, asking players, hey, you messed up my parlay. You see people like Kevin Durant talking about sports betting on Twitter. I do feel like athletes getting in trouble by getting into gambling, that's only gonna be on the rise now with leagues and sports books having these massive partnerships, gambling being everywhere. But anyways, that's kind of beside the point. But it has been a crazy year of gambling scandals. Ohtani, Rozier, Jonte Porter. It's ridiculous.
Gambling on sporting events? It's called gaming. It's clandestine, immensely profitable, and entirely illegal, except in the state of Nevada.
I bet just about every weekend when the football games.
A couple of dollars makes the game more interesting.
Today, if you want to bet on a game, you can log on to any one of these apps, and there's literally tens of thousands of different bets that you can make on any given game. There's just a fire hose of bets that are sprayed directly into your face. That's not how it always used to work. If you made a legal, regulated bet in Nevada, you had to walk into a sports book, probably in a casino like Caesar's Palace. There was a small menu of things that you could choose from and bet on. You could bet what's called a side, which is picking which side in a game would win, or you could bet on a total, which is betting that the total number of points scored in a match would be over or under a certain number. You could bet some futures, like what team will win the championship in certain sport this year, but that's pretty much it. The idea that you could bet on literally tens of thousands of things every day would have been outrageous back then. That's because the sports books in places like the Stardust in Las Vegas, they operate as amenities to the customers.
That is true. I mean, I'll give you a simple example. When I've been in Vegas over the past few years, I barely gamble. And that's because online sports books like FanDuel, DraftKings, fantasy sites like Prize Picks, they're not legal in Nevada. So in my opinion, Nevada has all these physical casinos, but it's one of the worst states for sports betting because you can't do that much on your phone. Like, currently, when I decide to bet on sports, when I'm in Virginia, that's where I live, I can literally wake up, I have 50 sports books on my phone, and it's so easy to place a bet. There's no barrier to entry. Whereas, when I'm in Vegas, I can't use any of the apps on my phone. FanDuel, DraftKings aren't legal. I got to get out of bed. I got to put clothes on, walk down to the casino, wait in line to place a bet. That's crazy. But again, sportsbooks are innovators. They want to provide a menu of betting options. They want to provide as many different bet types as possible, right? Like more options for sports bettors means the more bets you're going to get. Some people want to bet on player props. If you're not offering player props, that's crazy. So offer player props. A lot of people like LeBron James. A lot of people want to bet on LeBron James. Offer a bunch of different betting options on his assists, rebounds, points. So it makes sense why sports books are going in this direction. But I do agree, sports betting is crazy accessible right now. I mean, I literally, in Virginia, have 20 sports books I can log into at any moment, any time of day. Like when I was a trader at SIG, the stock market, it closes at 4 p.m. and it's not open on weekends. So you can't really gamble in the stock market past 4 p.m. Whereas sports betting, there's always things to bet on. There's always games to bet on. You can always place a bet, whether it's midnight, 2 a.m., Christmas, whatever. But anyways, I mean, that's kind of beside the point, but
Casinos only had sports books in order to bring in customers who wanted to bet on the game and hope that they would stay in the casino and gamble on other things. In that sense, it sort of operated as a loss leader for the casino and was subsidized or bankrolled by the rest of the casino. Today, a lot of the sports books that we bet with in America don't have casinos bankrolling them. That puts a lot of pressure on the sports book to make money through sports bets. This can be confounding and frustrating for the shareholders in these publicly traded companies.
that is true. A lot of sports books, they want, or a lot of casinos, which also have sports books, a lot of them, the goal is take a sports bettor and move them to casino because games like online slots are super lucrative. For casinos, they have a much higher hold or margin on casino games like slots. So a lot of times with, online sports betting, unfortunately for the sports books, casino betting is only legal in 4 states. I think it's like West Virginia, Michigan, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. I think those are the 4 states that have casino. So when I was in Pennsylvania, when I was working at SIG, FanDuel, there was FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel Casino. I signed up for FanDuel Sportsbook. I'd never used their casino product, and they just absolutely hammered me with promotions. Hey, play blackjack, play roulette, and if you lose your first roulette spin, we'll give you your money back. So they really try to take customers from their sportsbooks and push them to casino. However, again, casino is only legal in 4 states out of, all the states in the U.S. So sportsbooks kind of, and they can't do that in every state. You can in Michigan, West Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, but not every state has casinos or has legal online casino betting. So the sportsbooks actually have to be profitable and highly profitable on sports gambling. Whereas before, exactly as he said, it's a loss leader. You hope to get people in for sports betting, and I felt this in Pennsylvania. You hammer them with ads and promos to try to get that person playing slots, playing roulette, these games that have a much higher margin.
When the CEO has to come to a earnings meeting and tell them that all the favorites covered this season.
While we experienced the most customer-friendly stretch of NFL sport outcomes we've ever seen early in the fourth quarter, which pressures our revenue and adjusted EBITDA in the short term, the overall trajectory of our business is strong.
Customer-friendly stretch of NFL outcomes is code for the bettors won too much.
Just last night, Bengals make that 2-point conversion, and that last touchdown doesn't go in for a fourth parlay, and then would have been very different outcomes. So, things can swing either way.
Understood. Looked like pass interference to me.
It is crazy. The CEO of Jeffries, that's just what it said, saying on an earnings call that looked like a 2-point conversion to me. It's crazy.
The interest of the business and the business's customers here are incredibly diametrically opposed. And so that means that in order for a sportsbook to make more money, they have to win more money, which is to say that you have to lose more money. That, I think, is a far more problematic dynamic that exists with the expansion of sports betting right now, the relationship between the customer and the provider. I think that creates a relationship to this activity that's a lot different than what the relationship between the bettor and the bookie used to be. The earliest sports in America were literally just foot races. Those foot races were put together by gamblers.
That's kind of true, right? Like sports betting is a zero-sum game. If you sign up for FanDuel, you're betting against the house. You're betting against FanDuel Corporation. You make money off FanDuel, or FanDuel makes money off you. And I totally get it. Like, sportsbooks obviously want to increase their margin. They want to maximize profits off the average customer. But I don't see really how that was ever any different, but whatever.
For the purposes of betting on. Up until about 1950, the most popular sports in America are baseball, horse racing, and boxing. And baseball really only started to grow in popularity in America when gambling was outlawed at the horse races. And so the bookmakers would start taking bets on ball games from the stands. So we see this sort of cycle where sports in America have really grown in popularity and become a bigger part of American culture because people could figure out how to gamble on it.
Bet on him now at 9-1.
There's always been this question about the morality and how much betting on it has a corrupting influence on the sport. But what we know is that even when gambling is prohibited, people have continued to do it. In some ways, gambling is as American as apple pie. There was this real anti-tax attitude among the original colonists, and the way they got around that was they implemented lotteries as sort of a voluntary tax. What's sometimes called a sin tax was very attractive to government leaders who didn't want to tax people who didn't want to pay taxes, but wanted all these things, like that Simpsons episode about the Bear Patrol, where everybody wants things, but they don't want to necessarily pay for it.
Mr. Mayor, I hate to break it to you, but your city is infested with bears. Bear Patrol tax $5. What? This is an outrage!
Harvard and Yale were paid for by lotteries. Lotteries funded a lot of the American Revolution. So gambling has always been a part of the fabric of America, going right to the very beginning of America's founding. Most of us who are just regular recreational gamblers, we want to put a little bit at risk, but we like the idea or the promise that we could win a lot. And that's why lotteries are tremendously popular.
Record-breaking Powerball jackpot has reached $1.6 billion.
The chances of hitting the top prize are only 1 in 292 million. There is a chance.
If you're not in it, you can't win it.
Government has come to really depend on gambling revenues. We've got literally tens of billions of dollars in tax revenue from the local and state and federal level are collected from gambling all over the country. Today, there's brick-and-mortar casino gambling in 40 states, and there's some form of gambling in every state except for 2. Now they're looking at sports betting as being just the latest chapter in a way that they can create brand new tax revenues without having to raise more traditional taxes on people.
This kind of gaming used to be extremely taboo, but when you look at all the tax revenue possible, states legalizing this, there's some incentivizing.
It was a pretty easy pitch. They essentially went in and said, pass this bill, we'll open up in your state, and we'll give you all the money you need to do it.
In Montana, it goes to fund STEM scholarship funds. In Illinois, it's specifically directed to fund improvements to roads and schools. And in Colorado, it goes towards the state's water conservation plan.
For the longest time, the professional sports leagues in America were vehemently opposed to gambling in any way, shape, or form. The NFL wouldn't even let NBC advertise the show Las Vegas during NFL broadcasts on their network. That's how little they wanted to be associated with gambling. They didn't even want the network to advertise a television show that was set in Las Vegas on their football broadcast. There was this feeling that being associated with gambling would somehow hurt the leagues and their credibility and their integrity.
I think we still strongly oppose in that room and otherwise legalize sports gambling. The integrity of our game is number one. We will not compromise on that.
It so happens that the state of New Jersey challenged the constitutionality of the federal ban.
What I was really fighting for was each state's ability to make their own choice.
The Supreme Court will allow states to legalize sports betting.
But first, legislation must be passed at the state level.
And that exact moment is when I, first signed up for DraftKings, when it legalized in New Jersey. But yeah, I don't really get why leagues were ever opposed to sports betting. It's pretty obvious if a bunch of people are gambling on the NBA, a lot more people are going to be watching the NBA. Maybe it's because I bet every single day, but I can't remember the last day I haven't watched sports, I haven't followed sports. The fact that I'm betting on the NBA makes me more interested in the players. I bought more jerseys. I got my Jaden Daniels jersey over there. So, I mean, I feel like even niche leagues like the WNBA are benefiting greatly from sports betting. The WNBA is a summer sport. There's not much sports in the summer. There's obviously baseball in the WNBA. So the fact that you can now bet on the WNBA, people are actually watching it. People are following it, right? A lot more people are interested in betting on the WNBA than watching, how their bets shake out. So anyways.
The marketing was mostly geared towards young men.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those young men were people who already had been playing what's called daily fantasy sports, but hadn't necessarily ever bet on sports before. I mean, the biggest stars that you could think of were being enlisted to be in sports betting commercials, to be spokespeople for sports betting companies, athletes. Even the leagues started to sign deals with sports books. They wanted a piece of the pie from the sports betting boom. And they said, if you're going to use our data to process bets and make odds or whatever you're going to do, you're going to pay us a big fee for it.
We think we should be compensated in certain ways for the additional costs we're going to incur through various integrity measures.
So the sports leagues immediately got involved and got into bed with the sports books right away. There was no hesitation at all once it was all legal.
The Supreme Court ruled we have to adjust. The Supreme Court made the decision. We've got to adjust to that.
I mean, now you can't go to a professional sporting event in America these days without seeing ads for sports books all over the stadiums and arenas.
People are so upset at sports betting now. They're being forced the uncouth nature of it, and it's this infiltration of sports that is really frustrating people because people love sports and they want to be able to enjoy this innocently with their kids, with their friends, without being forced to watch. Charles Barkley told them that his parlay of the day.
Hey, never lost gambling.
Your record is 25.
That's my record for real?
Yes, thank you, FanDuel. I'm going on a winning streak, brothers.
You know what? Some would call this wagering, gambling. I think the way you sold this, I think what it is risk-free investment.
Well, that is absolutely crazy. That's crazy for an ESPN analyst to say. A bet is risk-free investment. So that's a horrible look, but again, I mean, obviously I love sports betting. It's been beneficial to my life. It provides me joy, and also I make money betting on sports. But I can totally see how if you have a gambling addiction, showing up to every single sports game, turning on the TV, everyone's talking about parlays. Like, I can see how that can cause certain people to go in a downward spiral, and it's not good for them. But again, how's that different than alcohol, right? Like, you think about alcohol, 90% of people, or I'm not even sure what the exact statistic is, 90% of people can enjoy alcohol. It's maybe not beneficial to their life, but they obviously enjoy it. They enjoy consuming it. It's not that detrimental to your health. Again, I'm not a doctor, but, we all see Bud Light ads everywhere. And obviously for some people who are addicted to alcohol, that's probably a bad thing. To constantly, every time you turn on the TV, every place you walk by, you can buy alcohol. The same way where, if you're an addicted sports bettor, now you're seeing FanDuel ads everywhere, and you can log into your phone at any minute and place a bet. The same way you can walk by a store at any moment and buy more alcohol. So I also will say, this stuff seems very crazy in the US, but most European countries, Australia, gambling has been a big thing. It's been popular for a while. And yeah, I mean, it's a part of sports. It's become a part of sports. It's become a part of a way of life. And for most people, they enjoy it, right? It makes games more enjoyable. Being able to bet on those games, it's a form of entertainment. But obviously, for the people who fall into addiction, are taking out loans and trying to pay their rent with sports betting, who have zero clue what they're doing, it's obviously a bad thing.
They're not professional bettors, but they're misrepresenting themselves as people who are experts in this industry when they really have no idea what they're talking about. Once again, furthering this idea that if you know about sports, you know about sports betting, which is why so many people lose money. They think they have an edge when they don't.
That is 100% true. I think a lot of people think they know sports, so they think they will be great sports bettors. I hate to tell you this, 97% of sports bettors lose long term. And guess what? They all watch sports, right? Just because you use Facebook and Instagram doesn't mean you can tell me if the price of Facebook is going to go up or down and you'd be a good trader trading Facebook stock, right? Sports betting is very technical. It's very data driven. If you actually want to get an edge and win long term, there's no get rich quick scheme. And again, you're competing essentially against multi-billion-dollar companies. FanDuel is a $40 billion company. They have teams of data scientists. They have really good models. They're experts in setting lines. watching Lakers games every single day isn't going to help you know if you should bet on LeBron's over or LeBron's under. It's way too simplistic of a point of view.
And it's something that gambling companies prey upon. It's something that announcers reinforce, and it's a problem not only for kids, but for everybody betting on sports.
If I had to bet football as much as I know, I tell you what, in a year or so, I'd be living under a freeway overpass.
These new sports bettors today are especially susceptible to one of the worst bets you can make, the same game parlay.
It is crazy seeing LeBron, like, former players, analysts, people talking on ESPN, like Stephen A. Smith, promoting his Prize Picks slip, but it is crazy kind of seeing Kevin Durant have a partnership with FanDuel, give out his NFL picks every single week. Seeing LeBron on DraftKings ads, giving out his Super Bowl picks. Like, that I don't fully get why current athletes are allowed to promote sports betting. It just seems like maybe a little bit of a conflict of interest, but I don't know.
Not only can you bet on the Yankees to win, but you can bet on the Yankees to win and Garrett Cole to have a certain number of strikeouts and Aaron Judge to hit a home run. And the products are a lot of fun, and in particular what they allow people to do is risk a very small amount of money and win a very large amount of money all in one game.
These bets are incredibly lucrative for the sportsbooks. Why? Because they're very hard to hit, but also they're very hard to calculate what the right price should be. When you start to add all these random, weird, correlated or negatively correlated events, the math to figure out what the fair price should be becomes very, very complex. Hardly any of us can do it. So the sportsbook can then bake into those bets a very, very big margin.
When you got overs and unders, you in every time they throw the ball, kick the ball, dribble the ball. Now that bet's got you watching every inning, half, round, period, set, hold, elect.
That is a fact, by the way. Same game parlays. I mean, I will bet on them occasionally on FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever. A lot of times they'll have promos, profit boosts, or, insured bets. Basically, if you lose, you get your money back. And again, these sportsbooks are running the promos because they want you to start betting on same-game parlays and get addicted to them. But it's really hard to make money on same-game parlays because of exactly what this guy just said. Sportsbooks bake in a lot of juice. When you're pairing outcomes in the same game, it's really hard to know due to correlation, what should the odds be? What is the true price? So you'll see for same game parlays, sportsbooks have insane margins. If you listen to their earnings reports, stuff like that, like sportsbooks have insane margins on these SGPs, on these same game parlays, because if they think a bet is fair at plus 800, they'll offer bettors plus 400, and most sports bettors won't even notice, right? Because it's a same game parlay. It's not a two-way market. Obviously that's a lot harder for books to do on spreads and totals. You think about a point spread, most sports bettors are accustomed to seeing minus 110, minus 110 odds. That's the traditional point spread odds. Minus 110, minus 110, same thing for over-unders. So basically on spreads and totals, most straight bets, sports books make about 4%, 5%. Whereas on same game parlays, their edge is, 20%, 30%. And again, it's because they can charge a lot of juice because nobody really knows what fair value is. Nobody knows what price they should be getting. We all know for spreads, for totals, for over-unders, we should be getting minus 110, minus 110-ish for either side we want to take. Whereas for a 5-leg same game parlay, it's really hard to know, should this be plus 800, plus 1600?
A typical bet on whether a team will cover the spread, the type of bet that used to be the bread and butter of Las Vegas sportsbook or barroom bookies, would deliver a 5 to 6% return to the sportsbook.
That's exactly what I just said. I mean, it's actually 4.76%, but some sportsbooks, on spreads, on totals, they'll charge more juice than the traditional minus 110, minus 110. But again, like if a book offers their totals minus 150, minus 150, sports bettors are going to catch on and be like, yo, this book is a ripoff. That's basically impossible to do with same-game parlays, these 5-6 leg parlays where it's really hard to calculate fair value and know what should the sportsbook be giving me or what do they think is fair. So what I mean by fair is, if an outcome's 50-50, right, like a spread, like a total, fair odds should be roughly plus 100. If an outcome's 50-50, I should be betting 100 to profit 100. It's like a coin flip. It should be a fair trade. I'm putting down 100 to win 100. Just like if me and you flip a coin, heads, tails, I'll take heads. Let's flip it for $100. That's a fair trade. Whereas on same game parlays, like sportsbooks will bake in massive edges. So if they think a parlay's actually fair at, let's say, plus 1,000, they'll add in insane amounts of juice maybe even a 40% hold and give you plus 600. They'll reduce the odds below what they actually think is fair. So if they think the same game parlay should be plus 1,000, they're only going to give you plus 600. And again, it's really hard to know what is fair. The sports books are the experts in doing that. FanDuel, has a ton of data scientists, models that are constantly going through these correlations, historical data, so they can really rip off the average bettor on these same game parlays.
A single game parlay, by comparison, will typically return up to 30% to the sportsbook.
All my kids are addicted, I shouldn't say addicted, I don't mean that, but they like the wrong games. You know why? They like the parlays, and they somehow think that a parlay is easy. Could you please tell people how hard it is to win on a parlay?
Well, you don't win as much, but when you win more. And, that's kind of why people like it, because, when they win, they get a big multiple on their money.
Jason Robbins, the DraftKings CEO, the look on his face when he said, all my kids are addicted, it's like, oh my gosh, he's probably like, why did I even come on this show? But yeah, he just said 30% hold on same game parlays. Like, that's astronomical.
This makes these bets sort of the credit default swap of sports betting. It's sort of like that scene in The Big Short with the Jenga pieces. That's what these are. You're putting together a financial product that, as you build these things up, it's worse and worse for you, right? The chances of you winning, but also how bad the bet you're making gets worse and worse. And this is a hard thing for people to understand, because I think most Americans just assume every bet's a bad bet. The house always wins. Of course, whenever I make a bet, I'm supposed to lose. So what difference does it make? I'd rather get the biggest possible payout for the few times that I do win. And that's the problem with that thinking, which I think is very prevalent among gamblers in America today, is that it's not actually true in sports betting. In sports betting, you actually can win, and you actually can have an advantage and have the best of it when you're making your bets. Fundamentally, people should want sports books and betting on sports to be fair. And I don't know that it is fair right now, and I don't know that there's any real pressure being placed on sports books to be fair to their customers. Their marketing and what they advertise to people is that you can win, and that you can win a lot of money.
All right, boys, who we betting on?
But the fact is that if you show any real ability to effectively handicap a game and beat the sportsbook, they will limit your bets and essentially kick you out of the sportsbook. They will not let you win. Can you talk to me a little bit about how sportsbooks treat you once you start winning?
They don't want to accept your bets. If you're in a VIP program, either a VIP host will be nice and tell you, sorry, you've been limited, you're no longer wanted here. A lot of the time they'll just ghost you.
That is very true. Again, a lot of people get pissed about it. I kind of realize that's part of the game. If you're crushing a sports book, they're going to limit you. They're going to cut you off. The same way if you go to a buffet and you don't eat for a week and then you just eat, tens and tens of plates of food. At some point, that buffet may say, hey, we're losing money on you. Most people take one plate. You're taking 20 plates, so we're going to cut you off. You're not allowed back in here. It's the same thing on sports books. Do I think it's fair? Obviously not really. I wish I could bet however much I wanted on any sports book. However, if that were the case, all these books would go out of business because sharps would destroy them. Then the book would go out of business and nobody would have access to this sports book. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's part of the game. A lot of sports books have opportunities. They have mispricings because they know, hey, if Alex makes $100,000 off us, we can just cut down his bet size. That's exactly what happened to me on DraftKings. On DraftKings Sportsbook, I made over $200,000. I was betting on it every single day for the first 2 years it was legal. Never got limited. DraftKings, they didn't really limit people in 2018. Now, in 2025, it's much different. But when DraftKings first launched in 2018, they were not aggressive on limits. I was able to bet thousands of dollars. I got crazy promos. I got a promo, $5,000 to refer a friend. And I could do that up to 5 times. I referred 5 friends to DraftKings and got $25,000. So initially, when DraftKings FanDuel launched, they were super focused on growth. They ran a ton of promos. They didn't limit that aggressively, which is why I was able to run up $200,000 on DraftKings. I'm sure, if I started to bet on DraftKings and had a brand new account right now, I would not be able to make $200,000, maybe 10, maybe 5. I don't know. I haven't done it yet, but now they limit more aggressively. But again, it's kind of part of the game. And some sports books are worse than others. So for example, Bettor picks Jake Paul's app. I can't even bet more than $100 a day. It's not even per bet, it's per day. When I signed up for Bettor, I pretty quickly made $60,000, something like that. And now I can only bet $100 per day. Kind of sucks, but it's part of the game, and it kind of is what it is. Dabble, another sports book, another fantasy book, Dabble Fantasy. I signed up for Dabble in January. I made a really quick $30,000. Then boom, they cut down my bet sizes. Now I can bet, like $23 per play. It sucks. I can still make money on Dabble. I'm still able to scratch by and make, because it's such an exploitable book, I'm still able to make and grind out $1,000 profit every single month, but obviously it's not going to be as lucrative as it was before. But anyways.
But yeah, sportsbooks don't want to accept winning customers.
Can you tell me about what those VIP programs are like?
Oh yeah, I mean, they're great while you're in them. You get all sorts of perks, whether it's, deposit bonuses or profit boosts or free sports tickets, all of these things.
That is completely true. I mean, a lot of sports books WynnBET, right? You may know the Wynn Casino in Vegas. It's one of the most beautiful, hotels in Las Vegas. I mean, they launched an online sports book. They had a crazy VIP program. I got free trips to the Wynn. I got to meet Tom Brady. I got to go to the match. I got free tickets to the match. So long story short, like, these books and their VIP programs will give you some nice treatment. But again, once the book realizes you're profitable, there's a good chance you're going to get kicked out of the VIP program. Or the book goes out of business, like WynnBET. WynnBET was super exploitable. In 2022, WynnBET was so easy to beat. They never limited me. I was able to make over $100,000 on WynnBET, and I was a VIP, so I got to go to, these cool events. I got free tickets to games, stuff like that. And then they went out of business. So it is, again, it's kind of a catch-22. WynnBET, I never got limited. They never screwed me in that way, but their book was so unprofitable because of people like me who just hammered their lines and all their mispricings that they ultimately went out of business.
A lot of winning bettors do everything they can to hide their identity from the sportsbooks, including bet under other people's accounts, so that the sportsbooks don't know it's them.
Well, I have other friends who have accounts, and I have people who will put on, their action on my behalf, and I'll have a Google sheet that tracks, and payments and everything like that, and what's where.
Sportsbooks have always profiled their players for people who are sharp or skilled bettors who can win long term. But as sports betting has grown in the United States, they have so many bets to manage, so many players.
You have almost an infinite number of choices that you can bet on.
At this point, bookmakers are computer programs and not people who are experts in their craft. They're operating at such high volume and speed that it's easier just to boot the winners and keep the losers.
That is completely true. If you, a lot of people ask me, how on earth can you say anybody can make money sports betting? Because I truly believe that's true. With just a little work, a little knowledge, learning about strategies like arbitrage, positive EV, middle betting, anybody can make money. Because for sports books, it's not even worth learning how to actually price lines perfectly. They don't care because they know, we're going to get a bunch of new signups every single day from all our crazy commercials. When there's a sharp, profitable customer, after we've flagged them as a smart person, they're making money, they're placing straight bets, they're consistently beating the closing line. We'll just cut down their bet size to $150 max, and then we'll take the losing customers and the complete degenerates, and we'll increase their max bet size. So for sportsbooks, they don't even need to be that good at pricing, because what they can do is just take anyone who's using their brain, using data, a sharp bettor, a profitable bettor, and just cut them off. If you've never been limited by a book, you're probably not a profitable sports bettor. I hate to tell you that. And at the same time, if you're following advice of people on TikTok, social media, who claim, they're betting $500,000, $100,000 and just absolutely crushing the books, you got to remember, that sports book would have limited him, right? That sports book, if this guy actually were up millions and millions of dollars like he says he is, that's, the sports books would have probably cut down his bet size at least a little. I mean, being able to bet $100,000 on a sports book, I wish I had that,
I would get these promotions because I was in their diamond VIP status, and they were talking about, when I make Onyx, I'll be able to get free tickets, etc. So I was excited about that, and I asked for tickets for, certain certain events. He's like, if you make Onyx, I can probably hook that up for you. So I was upping my volume with that goal of hitting Onyx, and eventually found myself not able to bet as much as I'd want to on certain tennis-related events. There would be a message that would come up on the app that says, your bet is too large, you're able to bet up to X amount, which pretty much said to me that they wanted me to bet on the site. Then once I was winning on the site, they didn't want me to bet on the site.
I think the issue for me is one of transparency, right? You shouldn't be able to have advertisements that say sign up and win, and then if you actually can win, they'll kick you out. You shouldn't be able to allow people to come in and lose as much money as possible while restricting winners. You can't restrict winners and then expand limits for losers, all while saying that you're a fair place for anybody to play. That's pretty deceptive in my opinion. So it's not just the limiting, but it's the lack of transparency around it.
I just got this great NFL offer, guaranteed, all up front, and this one's gonna be hard to pass up.
DraftKings is not able to succeed because of some random guy on the street who's placing a $10 same-game parlay. They're able to succeed because 1 in 100 customers is losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to be clear, if you look at the distribution of alcohol sales, the vast majority of it comes from people who drink way too much alcohol. But liquor stores aren't able to prey on those customers in the same way. They can't send them push notifications that, you haven't deposited in a couple days. Why don't you come back and we'll give you one for on us? I mean, there's a reason that case in the Wall Street Journal with a woman who had a family and she just mortgaged her house. Not great. But that's the kind of customer that even if DraftKings isn't saying they want, that's the kind of customer who's actually paying their bills.
There were so many times when I wanted to quit and I couldn't because the industry kept luring me back in, essentially.
That thing that we refer to as ban or bankrupt, I believe, is the problem. If you're a very good player, that is that you have an advantage over the house. They are going to limit or ban you. It's oftentimes document, we're not going to take your action, close your account, or we're going to limit you to $1.90. On the bankrupt board, if you're not a very sharp gambler, you have failings and you'll go for every goofy parlay, and that's the bankrupting.
Right, because against players they've flagged as being winners, they'll limit them. Everybody else, it's like, they'll take whatever you want to bet.
What the goal is not to manage risk, it's to eliminate the risk.
Our wager limits allow us to manage our liability exposure and avoid unsustainable losses. They do sometimes limit individual users for a variety of different behaviors. Some users may have more information than we do. Some users may have a better model than we do. We're comfortable taking wagers for them, but we have to do it in a responsible manner that protects our company.
I do think limits, a lot of people will say, oh, you can't bet whatever you want on every bet. And there's not a single stock, or it's the same thing in the stock market, right? Liquidity is a thing. You can't necessarily buy Bitcoin, these weird, crypto. You can't buy unlimited amounts of something at a particular price. So you think about college basketball. Let's just give an example. I think that's the best way to do this. You think about college basketball player props. FanDuel's not going to let you bet 50 grand on a college basketball player prop under, and it kind of makes sense. They don't want to take that risk. You may literally, that guy may be your roommate in college, and he tells you, hey man, my ankle's kind of messed up. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to play that much tonight. FanDuel's not going to take a $50,000 bet on college basketball player props for these random schools. Yeah, they'll let you get a little action down, maybe $100, $200, but these are more risky markets for the sports books. They're less efficient betting markets. The same way where, Bitcoin, that's a liquid cryptocurrency, but there's a whole long list of other cryptocurrencies that just don't have much trading volume because people don't want to take the risk. And again, I'm not super deep into crypto, so I can't list off all these random meme coins and stuff like that, but liquidity is an issue. And I think for sports books, people do have to be reasonable. Obviously, limits suck, don't get me wrong. But you have to understand, these sportsbooks are taking on a lot of risk, especially with niche leagues like Chinese basketball, ping pong, college basketball player props. It's nice, in my opinion, that they even let you bet on these things in the first place. They provide a lot of options, but I'm fully aware whenever I sign up for a book, they're not going to let me bet on college basketball player props for 50 grand. That's crazy.
You have a situation where a patron is losing and being encouraged through outreach by an operator's VIP staff and incentives. What's the balance when that same patron begins to win?
We should recognize that we have regulations in place to deal with companies that are selling products we deem to be problematic for society. We believe that tobacco companies should be allowed to make money, but they shouldn't be allowed to advertise on TV. Their products are going to be taxed very highly. There's going to be something on the little box that says you're going to get cancer if you do this. We don't have that in sports betting.
Again, I come back to this idea that all the issues that society is dealing with, whether it's the gamblers being limited, whether it's problem gambling, whether it's not being getting as much tax revenues, they all stem back to whatever the sportsbook can do to make more money is creating all these obstacles. We have to ask ourselves, is it possible for a sportsbook to make money without doing all these things? Because if it's not, this is a bigger problem than we thought, but it has to be, because there's actually been sports betting in America for 75 years. Las Vegas, Nevada is where the modern sports betting industry was birthed, incubated, and perfected over nearly a century. A lot of people thought that what would happen is that the sports betting business that we've known here would be exported to states all across the country. But that's not what happened. The type of sports betting that we're experiencing today is a lot different than the way that they book sports here in Nevada. Let me get a $100 parlay on the Eagles and the over.
Since sports gambling became legal 5 years ago in the United States, it states more than Nevada. The consumer's changed. I think the one unique thing about Circa is that we have a reputation to take big bets.
Circa Casino Resort, home of the biggest sportsbook in Las Vegas, is decidedly old school, and in many ways the antithesis of the modern online sportsbook. They have set maximum bets for everyone, winners and losers alike, and they welcome bets from professionals to help them set their prices. DraftKings, they've already proposed so many wild fucking things. Like, they proposed passing on taxes to the winners. Now they're proposing subscription models. They're constantly trying to reinvent this wheel. Meanwhile, we're standing in a city in a sportsbook that was built on a very simple idea that you deal 11 to 10, take a bet, you move a number. You know, this stuff has been done for a century, right? But to me, it just seems like if it wasn't broke, why are we trying to fix it?
So is it a profitable business?
It's not profitable yet, but we think we'll actually be the first operator. We'll be the operator that gets the profitability fastest relative to when we started. The reality is, we're very much in the early innings here.
We should really be looking at this as an antitrust issue too.
I will say another thing. A lot of these sports books, just hiring employees, setting up the software to kind of set their odds, set their lines, marketing, they're not even profitable. So don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. I think it's horrible that sports books prey on those who are addicted and super unprofitable. But at the same time, these are businesses, and we've already seen a lot of sports books, go out of business, and they have to be profitable long term. Otherwise, the sports book has to make money. Otherwise, it's going to go out of business. So there's not going to be a world where there's infinite profitable bets. Users can bet whatever they want. It's just not, I don't see a way that that's the case.
The two biggest sports books, DraftKings and FanDuel, hold 67% of the market share. They even tried to merge with each other in 2017 until the FTC, the state of California, and Washington, D.C. sued to block the merger. Despite not being able to join legally through acquisition, lawmakers allege they've been colluding with each other to shut out more competition. Their merger was blocked under the first Trump administration's FTC. And now, lawmakers from both parties are calling on the government to look into their duopoly power. They're really kind of using the same playbook that a lot of tech companies used before them. They're spending tons of money to try to conquer their market, push out all their competition, and then once they conquer that market, eventually turn a profit. And the stock market and Wall Street is rewarding them for this practice.
Shares of FanDuel parent Flutter have soared today. Look at that, up 15% in European trading that showed U.S. gaming revenue growth at 26% year on year.
There's still a big question about who will enforce the rules with the sportsbooks themselves.
This industry has exploded, and when you're appointed as a regulator, when you've got 77 lobbyists telling you something, not knowing they're all on the payroll of the industry, these companies are buying our politicians. Just plain and simple. Those firms spend $200 million on a ballot initiative.
One thing I wanted to say quickly, it's been on my mind, I just haven't mentioned it yet, is I'm not really sure how sports books are different than trading, right? You think about Robinhood. Robinhood is incentivized to have a bunch of people trading a lot of money on most likely financial products that they don't fully understand and almost certainly don't have an edge in. Literally. I used to work at a trading firm, so I was a market maker. And the common statistic we heard is over 99%, maybe it was 98% of day traders cannot even make money for 1 year. If they're trading every single day, they're losing money. And in the stock market, on derivatives, similar to sports betting, you can lose a lot of money really quickly. A lot of times too, depending on what strategy you're using, you can lose everything. Right? If you sell a put option and that stock dives, plummets, you can lose way more than you ever possibly stood to gain. People have lost $200,000 options trading in the snap of fingers. If a stock, shoots up or shoots down. So this get rich quick mentality, the same thing with people betting on parlays, it's kind of the same thing with trading options, which is something that, since online brokerages like Robinhood really started to take off, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, sports betting's pretty similar. It's another form of gambling. Options trading versus sports betting, parlays versus selling put options, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways.
Funny things in this industry. I don't know how it got a bad reputation.
We have to trust our legislators and regulators because they have an important responsibility to the public with regard to gambling. Protecting problem gamblers is perhaps the most important one of all, but it's made more difficult by the patchwork state-by-state nature of the current industry. Every state has their own laws, regulations, and standards. When you hear a sportsbook ad on TV or the radio, you ever notice the long list of phone numbers that they read at the end? That's because every state has their own hotline. Some states require that sportsbooks put money aside for responsible gambling initiatives, but they don't spell out what those initiatives should be. Some states don't require any money be set aside to address gambling-related harm at all. Of the 82 player protection standards suggested by the National Council on Problem Gambling, the average sports betting state has only implemented 32, and no state has implemented more than 49. As states weigh the fairness of limiting winners or the effectiveness of the current responsible gambling measures, the sportsbooks are already working on their next idea to make more money. If you don't have a casino to bankroll your sportsbook, Why not just become a casino?
Sports betting started to get legalized during COVID in a lot of states because there was this lack of funding, and states thought this was an easy way to raise funds, and they were right. Then eventually you realized, well, actually, sports betting doesn't actually make you that much money from the operator side. They need to get more money, and iGaming is an easy way to do that. And if you look at states that have both of them, far more funding and far more revenue comes from iGaming and sports betting. In places like Michigan and New Jersey, I think it's like 3 or 4 times as much. And then also, women don't really bet on sports, whereas online casino and casino in general is actually pretty split between the genders. And so by legalizing iGaming, you basically expose this entire half of the population that wasn't gambling before, wasn't losing money and providing tax revenue, that now can do that. It's so easy to, for example, double down and chase your losses in a way that obviously you can still do with sports betting, but the rapidness of it is really, really scary, and it just makes it, I think, a fundamentally different product. It feels like you're scrolling through TikTok, but you're just losing money while you're doing it.
Gambling is something that's really all over, everywhere in America today. It's how we invest our retirement into the stock market, and we're gambling there, and we're told, hey, you don't know, there may be less money when you retire than more. This is a risk that you're taking, and we assume those risks and just hope for the best. There's a story that we're told in America that the most successful people in our country got to where they are because they took some big risk. They were willing to risk losing in order to win, and their success is their just reward. Ironically, these companies that want to get rich off gambling don't want to take any gamble themselves. They and their shareholders are scared to death of risk, and in their effort to avoid it, they're making things worse. For sports, for their customers, for all of us. But if there's one thing a life among gamblers has taught me, it's this. The strong may prey on the weak, but the clever prey on the strong. If there's a way for sports gambling to exist in our society that's safe, fair, and fun for everybody involved, I suspect it's going to require somebody sharp to figure out how.
So, I mean, regardless, I think it's a really cool video. I definitely think it's very negative. Like, I would not describe sports betting as a bad thing for the sports industry. If anything, athletes are going to make more. Every athlete, every WNBA player should be happy that sports betting is now legal. Sure, whatever, there's going to be some people who complain, comment, DM you on Instagram if you lose their parlay. But again, more viewership means more money to go around. So I don't see how it's not a benefit for leagues, players, things like that. I also will say, I agree with most of the video. I chimed in at a lot of points. But again, sportsbooks have to win long term. Like, I've seen this thing in Massachusetts. Oh, we want to stop the ability to limit profitable customers. And I just don't see how it's going to work. All books are going to do is dial in pricing, right? And then there won't be any good bets because books will have to spend a ton more time focused on pricing. They'll have to spend a ton more time focused on trading. And maybe that's better. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. Because there's a lot of sports books, like Circa was mentioned. Circa in Vegas, right? It's known to be anybody can come, anybody can bet. But guess what? Circa is really good at setting lines. It's probably, arguably, the hardest book in the country to actually beat. It's known to be a very sharp sports book. There's not a lot of edges. There's not a lot of arbitrage opportunities. There's just not a lot of opportunity on Circa, period. Because again, they allow anyone to bet the same amount of money. They have max bet sizes listed. So they have dialed in pricing. And for me, that's not that much better. I want a book that's littered with opportunity, tons of arbitrage bets, tons of stale lines, tons of EV bets, books that are easy to pick off to injury news, stuff like that, where I can bet any amount of money. Obviously, I know that any amount of money is not going to come, but that's why I use so many sports books. I've used over 50 sports books. I'm aware that some books are going to limit me, and it sucks. I'm obviously not happy on Bettor, a book I made over $60,000 on last year. I'm not happy that they now limit me to a max bet size of $100 per day. But again, I kind of know it's part of the game. I knew this was going to happen in some ways. I didn't know when I was going to get limited. I didn't know how much. But again, it's kind of part of the game. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment other video ideas. I love making sports betting content. And yeah, thanks so much for your time, guys.